Prior to Carlos Corberan's arrival in eastern Spain, Valencia were 19th, heading for a relegation for the first time in nearly 40 years. Fast forward 5 months and Valencia are currently sat in 11th place, above the likes of Real Sociedad, Girona, Sevilla, and just 3 points off European football. So far, in Corberan's reign since joining from West Brom, Valencia have enjoyed wins over Sevilla, Real Sociedad, and even Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. His influence has been clear. He's transformed the club, so it's about time someone has a closer look at that. So as we've established, Valencia were in a bit of a state before they triggered the release clause of the West Brom gaffer. And statistically, it didn't look too good. The last 10 games under Ruben Baleja, they had just 1 win and 4 draws and 5 losses. One of those losses being to bottom of the table. In terms of scoring goals and conceding, they average 1.1 goals scored and 1.6 goals conceded per 90. Now, if we look at the last 10 games under Carlos Corberán, you'll see 6 wins, 3 draws and just 1 loss, with 1.6 goals scored per 90 and just 0.8 goals conceded per 92. So an improvement in every department. Better defence, better attack, better all round. That's what Corberán does to a team. He's simply a superb coach and the type of manager who overachieves, adapts to different challenges. Just have a look at what he did at Huddersfield and West Brom for reference, because he's now doing it at Valencia. Now if we just look back at those stats for a moment, of course the pretty big difference is the goals conceded, but Corberán has actually improved Valencia on the opposite end of the field even more. There's only been 2 league games where they've failed to find the nets, which may come as a surprise to people familiar with the Spanish manager, because amongst some people, he grew a real reputation for impressing in his team's out of possession work, but not so much at the other end of the field. For example, between October to the start of December last year, his West Brom team won just 1 game. They had drawn 10 in this period and lost just 1, and in 6 of those games his side failed to score whatsoever, which saw him criticised heavily by the West Brom faithful. But on the topic of attacking teams, let's look at how his Valencia team do that. To establish a component of this quite early, a Carlos Corberán team puts a lot of emphasis into wide spaces. His West Brom team did, his Huddersfield team did. This wasn't going to be different at Valencia. When watching Valencia, I noticed whenever they did keep it short, they really excel progressing the ball through tighter spaces out wide. There's a good level of technicality amongst the starting 11, so once they're combining out wide, keeping the ball, they aim to consume opposition numbers in an attempt to isolate their opposing flank, making that pass easier. Often, it also leaves one of the midfielders isolated too, so that means he can distribute the ball to the wide player in space. As you can see here, this works pretty well to then progress up the pitch down that right flank. The passing range and comfortability of their midfield core allow them to access passes across the pitch, but that's a huge part of their attack that I'm going to talk about in a minute. Once they've entered that final third, they combine quite a bit with a fullback and winger working together. Nothing too complicated. When they progress the ball into a position where they can cross, they look to overload the box, as you can see, with decent numbers, looking to give that crosser options, looking to maybe pull defenders away or create space for one another. Valencia have scored plenty of goals under Carlos with low crosses, because quite often low crosses generate more XG and a better chance of scoring. So these crosses will consist of simple layoffs, low crosses struck straight in front of the keeper, or a looped cross towards the head. With throw-ins, they look to overload 3 to 4 numbers across to help them play through the opposition, and look to be pretty testing on set pieces too, as showcased at Real Madrid. But the biggest and most effective method of which Corberán attacks the team is through direct balls. Why is this? Well, it's because Corberán looks to utilise plenty of runners, as you could probably tell by the thumbnail. When you look at Valencia, their form this season, the overall quality they have, teams won't be sitting back against them, meaning there's space for them to exploit, to infiltrate. The runners commonly consist of that forward line, the wingers, but Javier Guerra from deep in midfield makes some hugely effective runs into space. That serves a lot of difficulty when trying to deal with them. When he's making runs from deep, it means he's probably free without being picked up, making that quite an easy access to the final third. It sounds very simple, but you can't exactly rely on one man to make the runs for you, because eventually teams will just suss that out. So you need more options, which is why commonly those Valencia forwards actually drop in deep to find a deep starting position for them to run. Against Las Palmas, we see them build up from a goal kick, then find a long ball into a runner who, before the ball is even played, isn't so close to his opponent, giving him that space to attack. But also from the opposition centre-back perspective, you're worried about that long ball into the channel, but you're also worried about the Valencia forward attacking onto it, who's a decent distance from you. The centre-back then is unsure and looks to half follow and half stay, which is evident once the ball is played, because as you can see, the Valencia forward is ahead of him. The rest is exactly what we discussed with the crossing, but there's so many examples of goals, chances they've created, that's a carbon copy every time, just in different phases of the pitch, as it could be from playing out from the back, a counter-attack, or just general build-up play. But it's important that the long passes from deep can hit them well, which they do. Enzo Barrenechea stands out here massively, making this form of attack very effective, clearly. Because as you can see, they're scoring goals from it. Against Getafe, they quite literally won 2 penalties from it. But an area I've not looked at as of yet is their shape and build-up. Corberán amongst quite a few teams adapts, and that's no different now. Once they've moved up the pitch a bit, it's quite hard to pinpoint a formation, because similar to my recent video where I talk about Thomas Frank, players rotate. Players move. Players pick up the ball in different spaces, get away from their man with the idea to get on the ball more and find solutions out on the pitch. But the right back tucks into the back line quite commonly. The pivot remains with the left back in Gaia pushing further up. Guerra, who partners Barrenechea in the 2 in midfield, only moves up if he's rotating or makes the run when the moment is right. Moving backwards now though, commonly he likes his 4-2-4 and build-up. The back 4 remains, as it is the 2 midfielders who look to help connect the defence to the attack. But this won't always remain like this, as players move of course. Although the 2 in midfield mostly stay deep, here you can see one is high, creating a 1-3 in midfield, looking to stretch the opponent's shape, test them, find space and solutions. When I've watched Valencia on the ball playing out, it looks at times pretty shaky, a bit chaotic. This could be down to the quality of players, but what's useful in those moments is that Corberon encourages his team to look for a long ball. So if you play yourself into trouble, then hit it long. No worries. I wouldn't say it's hugely fluid on the ball, but it stretches the opposition, creates space, makes use of the width, and ensures they progress up the pitch. What does move very fluidly though is them off the ball. Corberon has different approaches here. Against Real Madrid, he set up in a 5-4-1 off the ball, adapting to the threat they hold. It was very compact, tricky to break down, and remained very proactive in preventing Madrid progress through the wide spaces. On the ball, it also meant the right centre-back in Cristian Mosquera could push the wing-back in Max Aarons up high, as Mosquera is superb in wider spaces. Usually though, it's a 4-4-2 off the ball. When they press high, intensely, they look to turn to a 4-2-4 when the wingers press onto the fullbacks, who ultimately look to take care of them. That's their job. If the opposition fullbacks push up, then the wingers will push deeper, limiting the passing option to them excellently. Defensively, like most Corberan teams, they are so well drilled. Off the ball, the shape is so compact, balanced, and is very tricky for opponents to break down. You can see the side is very well coached when you watch them. When the ball circulates out wide, they deal with it and look to shift over to force the team backwards. And when that ball does move out wide, you'll see Carlos Corberán is usually jumping up and down on the touchline, with him being a pretty animated coach. His defence itself is very dominant in duels. The 2 centre-backs particularly Mascara, is a solid ball winner and he loves his duels, somebody that I previously covered on the channel. But any ball into the box, headed away. Any 1v1 duel, dealt with. Valencia since Corberan's arrival have 7 clean sheets in all competitions, and only on 4 occasions have they conceded more than 1 goal in a game, and 2 of those were against the 2 teams in Madrid, which proves exactly the revolutionary impact that Carlos Corberan has had all over the team. He simply transformed the feel around the club, and if Valencia stick by him, back him, then quite simply, they'll climb that La Liga table once again. If you enjoyed today's video, then make sure to smash a like and subscribe to the channel. What do you think of Carlos Corberan and how good of a manager he really is? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.